be starting with a bad case of stripes by David Shannon. Camila Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camila was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was her first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror. Then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room, and she screamed too. "Oh my heavens," she cried, "you're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camila was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camila's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camila answered. "But look at me." "You get back in bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camila was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what other kids would say, and she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camila. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching?" "No," Camila told him. "I feel fine." "Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, "I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me." And off he went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camila. They called her Camila Crayon, and the night of the living lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camila turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard," and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camila was changing faster than you can change channels on a TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camila home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious." Camila was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," said Camila. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day. "Well, yes, I see," Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. "I think I better bring in the specialists. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Dr. Crop, Dr. Measles, said Dr. Sponge. Definitely not chicken pox, put in Dr. Cricket. Or sunburn, said Dr. Young. Try these, said a specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. Take each one before bed, said Dr. Crop. Then they filed out the front door, followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Millen were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down a lot of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. It might be a virus, he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Mr. Millen. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be a fungus, added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. We need to go over these numbers again back at the lab. Dr. Gord explained, we'll call you when we know something, but the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house, telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies, from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, and an old medicine man, a guru, and even a vegetarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and even a long furry tail, but nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed that she could cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. I wish you hadn't said that. Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was the dresser, and 2 paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. What are we going to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a shake of her head. What do we have here? It's a bad case of the stripes, one of the worst I've ever seen. She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. Here, she said, these might do the trick. Are those magic beans? Asked Mrs. Cream. Oh my, no, replied the kind old woman. There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you? She asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big but she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh dear," the old woman said sadly. "I guess I was wrong about you." She put the beans back in her bag and started towards the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. "Wait," she cried out, "the truth is, I really love lima beans." "I thought so," the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole world swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured," she shouted. "Yes," said the old woman, "and I knew the real you was in there somewhere." She patted Camilla on the head, then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of stripes again. So that was the book, A Bad Case of Stripes. Right. Now we're going to be reading Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for the juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed towards the kitchen ceiling. It landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay a tiny town of Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a mean street lined with stores, houses, and trees, and gardens around them. A schoolhouse about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Whatever the weather served was what they ate, but it never rained, it never snowed, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice, it snowed mashed potatoes and green peas, and sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. food. The townspeople went outside. They carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If they were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in the refrigerators in case they got hungry in between meals. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was already coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast, butter, and jelly sprinkled in down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned up things after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it onto the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day. The next there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day there was pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal. They got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was besides itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning, and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Lunch one day brought 15-inch strips of cream cheese and chili sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new island. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in this new land. The biggest change that they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except for rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what really happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his good night's kiss. The end. Okay, and that was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Can't You Sleep, Little Bear by Martin Waddle and Barbara Firth. Once there were two bears, Big Bear and Little Bear. Big Bear is the big bear and Little Bear is the little bear. They played all day in the bright sunlight. When night came and the sun went down, Big Bear took Little Bear home to the bear cave. Big Bear put Little Bear to bed in the dark part of the cave. Go to sleep, Little Bear, he said, and Little Bear tried. Big Bear settled into the bear chair and read his bear book by the light of the fire, but Little Bear couldn't get to sleep. Can't you sleep, Little Bear? Asked Big Bear, putting down his bear book, which was just getting to the interesting part, and patted over to the bed. I'm scared, said Little Bear. Why are you scared, Little Bear? Asked Big Bear. I don't like the dark, said Little Bear. What dark? Said Big Bear. The dark all around us, said Little Bear. Big Bear looked, and he saw that the dark part of the cave was very dark. So he went to the lantern cupboard and took out the tiniest lantern that was there. Big Bear lit the tiniest lantern and put it next to Little Bear's bed. There's a little light to keep you from being scared, Little Bear, said Big Bear. Thank you, Big Bear, said Little Bear, cuddling up into the glow. Now go to sleep, Little Bear, said Big Bear. And he pattered to the back of the bear chair, settled down to read the bear book by the light of the fire. Little Bear tried to go to sleep, but he couldn't. Can't you sleep, Little Bear? Yawned Big Bear, putting down his bear book with just 4 pages to go to the interesting part, and patted over to the bed. I'm scared, Little Bear. Why are you scared, Little Bear? Asked Big Bear. I don't like like the dark, said Little Bear. What dark? Asked Big Bear. The dark all around us, said Little Bear. But I bought you a lantern, said Big Bear. Only a teeny weeny one, said Little Bear, and there's lots of dark. Big Bear looked and he saw that Little Bear was quite right. There was still lots of dark, so Big Bear went to the lantern cupboard and took out a bigger lantern. Big Bear lit the lantern and put it beside the other one. Now go to sleep, Little Bear, said Big Bear, and he padded back to the bear chair and settled down to read the bear book by the light of the fire. Little Bear tried to go to sleep, but he couldn't. Can't you sleep, Little Bear? Grunted Big Bear, putting down his bear book with just 3 pages to go, and padded over to the bed. I'm scared, said Little Bear. Why are you scared, Little Bear? Asked Big Bear. I don't like the dark, said Little Bear. What dark? Asked Big Bear. The dark all around us, said Little Bear. But I brought you 2 lanterns, said Big Bear, a tiny one and a bigger one. Not much bigger, said Little Bear, and there's still lots of dark. Big Bear thought about it, and then he went to the lantern cupboard and took out the biggest lantern of them all, with 2 handles and a piece of chain. He hooked up the lantern above Little Bear's head. I've brought the biggest lantern of them all, he told Little Bear. That's to keep you from being scared. Thank you, Big Bear, said Little Bear, curling up in the glow, watching the shadows dance. Now go to sleep, Little Bear, said Big Bear, as he padded back to the bear chair and settled down to read the bear book by the light of the fire. Little Bear tried and tried and tried to go to sleep, but he couldn't. Can't you sleep, Little Bear? Groaned Big Bear, putting down his bear book with just 2 pages to go, and padded over to the bed. I'm scared, said Little Bear. Why are you scared, Little Bear? Asked Big Bear. I don't like the dark, said Little Bear. What dark? Asked Big Bear. The dark all around us, said Little Bear. But I bought you the biggest lantern of them all, and there isn't any dark left, said Big Bear. Yes, there is, said Little Bear. There is, out there. And he pointed out of the bear cave at the night. Big Bear saw that Little Bear was right. Big Bear was very puzzled. All the lanterns in the world couldn't light up the dark outside. Big Bear thought about it for a long time, and then he said, Come on, Little Bear. Where are we going? Asked Little Bear. Out, said Big Bear. Out into the darkness, said Little Bear. Yes, said Big Bear. But I'm scared of the dark, said Little Bear. No need to be, said Big Bear, and he took Little Bear by the paws and led him out of the cave into the night. And it was dark. Oh, I'm scared, said Little Bear, cuddling up to Big Bear. Big Bear lifted Little Bear and cuddled him and said, Look at the dark, Little Bear. And Little Bear looked. I've brought you the moon, Little Bear, said Big Bear. The bright yellow moon and all of the twinkly stars. But Little Bear didn't say anything, for he had gone to sleep, warm and safe in Big Bear's arms. Big Bear carried Little Bear to the back of the bear cave, fast asleep, and he settled down with Little Bear on one arm and the bear book on the other, cozy in the bear chair by the fire. The end. are the different species and things mentioned in the book. So, the yellow butterfly is a tiger swallowtail, 2 ladybugs, 3 Boston orcles, 4 spotted owls, 5 maple leaves, 6 silver salmon, 7 black-tailed deers, 8 red-legged frogs, 9 stellar jays, 10 redwood cones. Okay. And that was the tallest tree. Okay, this is Shake My Sillies Out. Tee. Giggle, giggle, har, har. Tee, ho, ha, ha, ho. Will you guys go to sleep? And wiggle my waggles away. Remember, blue jays, they're fierce animals in the forest, such as bears and squirrels and rabbits. Gotta clap, clap, clap my crazy sound. Police, fire department, park rangers help. Clap, clap, clap my crazy sound. Clap, clap, clap my crazy sound. And wiggle my waggles away. Gotta jump, jump, jump my jiggles out. Jump, jump, jump my jiggles out. Thank goodness you're here. Jump, jump, jump my jiggles out. And wiggle my waggles away. Gotta yawn, yawn, yawn my sleepies out. Yawn, yawn, yawn my sleepies out. Yawn, yawn, yawn my sleepies out. And wiggle my waggles away. Gotta shake. Shake. Shake my sillies out. Shake, shake, shake my sillies out. Shake, shake, shake my sillies out. And wiggle my waggles away. And then you can play this song